Full of Hell have been a prolific band for 15 years now, with 5 full lengths, 5 collaborative full lengths, many splits, EP singles, noise compilations. Vocalist Dylan is here to chat to us today. Dylan, thank you for joining us.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
Now, you're an extraordinary band from an extraordinary scene, and you always seem to be evolving and soaking up in the sometimes collaborative nature of your output. Does this evolution represent a conscious effort to keep people guessing, or is it just you experiment and see where it takes you?
It doesn't really have a lot to do with anybody outside of the band, to be honest. It's just what the boys are into at that point in their lives. Like when I look back at the different eras of the band now, I definitely see that it's always kind of been pretty genuine, and there's a vague roadmap there, but we kind of just go beat to beat and just feel it out and do what feels honest, you know? Like that's pretty much all there is to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's an incredible album. I've been listening to Coagulated Bliss quite a lot. I mean, I'm a fan anyway, right?
Thanks,
I
man.
got my trumpeting ecstasy t-shirt set upstairs. I was going to wear it today, but I thought, no, that's a bit much.
Thanks, man.
Right. There's an old phrase in fashion that it costs a lot of money to look this shabby. Now, it made me think of the grindcore and power violence scenes a little, not in regard to clothing, obviously, but
Yeah.
it takes a lot of skill and technicality to sound that chaotic. And do you think it's overlooked how like technical the music is and how much skill goes into it?
No, I don't think it's overlooked or underrated or overrated. It's all pretty subjective, you know? Like, yeah, I think there's a lot of intention sometimes that goes into that stuff, but there are tons of examples of actual psychos playing the music that don't have intention, and that's kind of also what makes it brilliant, you know? There's not
Yeah.
really like a concrete roadmap to it. And like, you know, it really depends on a case by case basis. With Full of Hell, it has gotten more technical over the years, and I do think that shines through in the music. I think there's a lot more of like noodling with different time signatures and stuff that I don't think those boys would have been messing with about 10 years ago. But yeah, I don't really have sorry, not much of an opinion on like whether it's overrated or not, because I just think there's just so much stuff going on that you can
Hmm.
find examples of stuff that's kind of stupid or stuff that's like very intentional and genius. Or I mean, our most of our favorite bands, there seems to be intention there, but the guys are like so out of their minds that like I don't know, it's debatable. You know, it's debatable, and that's what makes it brilliant. The Body's a great example to me of a band that like there is intention there, I suppose, but the intention is like in like letting the songs find themselves when they're writing. So
Sure.
like the intention is to not touch the wings of the moth or whatever. So yeah, it just depends on a case by
Yeah.
case basis, I
It
guess.
just struck me because I was listening to Coagulated Bliss, obviously, and there are parts in it that sound easily as technical as anything I've heard on a band like a gent band do, or like Tesseract or someone like that do. You know, it's like
Interesting.
that's really clever. You know,
It's cool hearing them move into stuff like that. You know, most of the bands I've been in since I was a kid were kind of trying to do stuff like that was a bit mathier.
yeah.
So it's cool to hear it with Full of Hell. I just have moments now when if I try to look at things like through an objective lens, Full of Hell just feels kind of honest to us because it seriously, I think if I would have heard it as a kid, I would have been like, this is insane. I love this. So that's kind of just always the hope and the goal is that it's
Absolutely,
true to
absolutely.
us or whatever.
One of the other things that really struck me about this album in particular is how hooky it is
Right.
compared to your former releases. It's that's not to say it's not incredibly upfront and brutal, which it is. That you'd be surprised if it wasn't. But you've been quoted as saying that the your work with the body you just mentioned has helped you recognize that there was value in pop music. And I think this is amazing as one of the most subversive things I think you can do in an already subversive genre is put a major chord riff in there. So
Right.
yeah, yeah. How do you feel about
I
that
mean,
hookiness?
well, side note, agreed. Some of my favorite black metal in America uses major key stuff, and it sounds like
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's just so off. It's so off. And you know, those body collabs, we did those a long time ago at this point. I mean, it's going on like 8, 9, 10 years. And I do remember them kind of cracking open my mind and being like, oh man, there really is like a lot of inherent value and like just about like there's something to find under every rock that's like absolutely genius. And there's something really admirable about a person, to me at least in my experience, that plays maybe a non-conventional genre or something that's very confrontational and maybe not so accessible, but they kind of filter it with like an intelligent pop lens almost. And Machines with Magnets is a recording studio that we used to go to a lot, still from time to time, where I feel like that engineer Seth Manchester is just like so good at that in particular, like making noise records like even more dynamic and listenable just from his approach to it. I don't There's a lot of different approaches, but yeah, with the Full of Hell record, this was kind of like a long time coming. I think we meant to write this record and we've been working towards it for years, but we just like, it's always genuine, so we just weren't quite in the headspace. Those guys have been like enormous post rock fans their entire, or not post rock, noise rock fans their entire lives.
Mm.
So I think it's just come to a point where they were just like, they had the tool set needed to kind of try and filter grindcore through like a Melvin Z, Sonic Youthy kind of
Yeah.
format, which is something they've always wanted to do. And for me, it's really exciting to write to. So I'm pretty stoked about it.
It actually came to me at a very good point because I've just been reading a book called This Band Could Be Your Life. And it's got I
Yeah,
was
yeah, we have
reading
that
the
one.
Butthole Surfers chapter,
Yeah,
and that
totally.
landed at the same time your album did. I'm like, I see where they're yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
they're a big
brilliant.
influence for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, putting in like there is a point in your record where there is quite a happy sounding riff, but it's in like a majorly fuzzed out way. And I think the best way to jar the listener who's used to noisy stuff is to put something actually happy in there. That's the what was that? You know,
Right.
it's a really good tool.
Yeah, yeah. Those kind of tones, I think they're like you can interpret them in different ways. There's this band, one of our favorite bands of all time is this band Harvey Milk, and it is like just the most devastatingly sad, heavy, unique sounding bands of all time. And that song I think that you're referring to is the really Harvey Milk influenced song. And I just it strikes me very deeply when a song sounds like that, if you want to say major key or whatever.
Mm.
And it's just still spiritually devastating. Like it's
Yeah.
so sad. And yeah, I don't know. It would be boring to stick to I think, the same vibe all the time. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I've seen with bands like Liturgy, like where there's like
Yeah.
a real sort of tragic beauty to it because it's
Yeah, I
trying to
love
stay
liturgy.
happy, you know, but it can't.
Yeah, it's a different approach. I mean, it just can't all be the same all the time. I mean, yeah, and I really like I really like the contrast, and I like peaks and valleys. So I think, having riffs like that and approaching stuff like that, when you go nasty, it's like 10 times
Mm.
better.
Oh yeah.
The contrast is good.
Contrast is
Sweet and
everything.
salty. Nothing better.
Yeah, this has come up in a lot of interviews with me recently, where we've talked about contrast. I think Sleep Makes Waves said to me like they worked with a producer. He said if everything's heavy, nothing is heavy, and I
It
like
blows out your
that.
palate. It
Exactly,
completely
you've got
blows
to
out your
have.
palate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important.
So lyrically, I want to take us on to here. It's a lot more direct on this record, and it almost seems like a sort of misanthropic love letter to small town America that you love, but you despair of it.
Right.
Is that an accurate description of where you wanted to go lyrically with this record?
Yeah, I actually like that summation. That's really nice of you to say. Yeah, so the guy that painted all of the art for this record is an old friend of ours. He's like I guess to me kind of like a big brother type of guy, and in at different points in my life, especially with Full of Hell, he's just kind of been there to kind of inspire me to, I don't know, like quit my job and pursue art full time, for example. So there's a connection there that's really important. Like he knows who we are and he
Mm,
knows where we've been and he's been watching us for years. So we finally come around to doing this project together. And there was a moment where we were speaking on the phone before he started making the art and largely before I started writing any of the lyrics even. And he told me something that stuck with me. He said that it was time at my age and with my family situation going on that I should come home and
mm,
write about a record that's, about where I'm from, where we're
mm,
from. And I don't know why that didn't really click for me before because it just was like so obvious when he said
mm,
it that I was just like, why would I not write about something that I fully know like from head to toe, like what the experience is, and like there's a lot to draw on, in like a mundane rural like atmosphere. It has its own struggles and it's something that everybody in the band experienced. I live in a different town than the other guys, but like it's the same story. And I think what I liked about the idea of focusing on that as well was that I think that story is applicable like all over the Western world, especially like, any small town. a lot of these experiences are universal.
Mm.
That and they're benign and they're everyday. They're in people's faces all the time, and I don't think that diminishes how awful it can be. I think
Yeah.
that's like, in a way, looking at it like it being so normalized. A lot of
Mm.
those things we're writing about, I think, is pretty horrifying in their own right and very sad. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant. It's it's one of those things where the you've got the perfect mirror going on with the music and with the lyrics, and you've created a proper piece of art here. I do believe that.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, so you've collaborated with some incredible acts over the years. One of my personal favorites, one of my personal favorite bands was when you worked with Health on the Full of
Oh
Health
yeah.
track. I mean, they're just awesome. Love them. But you've also
Yeah, they were.
like worked with artists who like big sonic manipulation artists like Merzbow, Primitive Man, as we've mentioned, The Body, and Nothing on that beautifully contrasting. While we're talking about contrast, Where No Birds Sang. Now, of all
Yeah.
these artists, are there any tracks that stand out that you're particularly proud of or moved by?
Um, there are a few tracks on the Body collabs where I was just really tickled to be able to tell one of my favorite bands, like, well, not tell, but to try and get them to do things that I wanted to see them do as a fan, and
Yeah,
also kind of be involved. Like making them cover Leonard Cohen was like a really cool moment for me.
that's super cool.
Yeah, and like, because I think it's really important to listen to people that aren't in your band that know you and care about what you're doing, and just gain some kind of perspective, because it's like, I mean, it's truly next to impossible, and it just gets harder as we get older to have any real perspective on like, on anything really. I mean, beyond like, does this feel good to play?
Mm,
So the collabs all have their moments where I'm just like, I'm gaining a lot from it. The Nothing collab in particular was like pretty out there. It made sense for us in the group. It wasn't weird to us at all, because post rock fills my head like almost all the, like, Godspeed You Black Emperor and Silver Mount Zion, all that Montreal stuff is like among my favorite bands of all time. And like, the guys love shoegaze. And
yeah.
there's even a similar approach to the Wall of Sound idea with Nothing and Full of Hell. So it wasn't even alien to make the record together, but hearing my band do something that was pretty quiet, um,
Yes.
was really special for me,
Mm,
and like singing on a record in a context that felt like kind of natural, not forced. It was a good challenge. I think we gained a lot from the Nothing one in particular. And honestly, not to keep rambling about it, but the Primitive Man collab, like head to toe, was just like an exercise in like, I know these guys, I love these guys, and we're on the same page completely, because me and the singer Ethan wrote the lyrics for the whole record in like an hour. And
wow.
they're not away lyrics. I'm really proud of them. And we just, because we write about the same stuff, we feel the same things like on a deeper level. And I think that's like, those are the moments that you're really proud of, when there's like super crazy synergy, you know?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I saw Primitive Man like a few weeks back with Napalm Death, and it was just a whole. I thought I'd seen Heavy, and then I saw
Dismal.
them, and then a few weeks later I saw Bell Witch, and I was like, oh
Yeah,
man,
dude.
I've got to
Yeah,
reassess
man.
what I think's heavy.
Yeah, they're at the fringe for sure.
Yeah, right. So you've got new. What it says here, new guitarist Gabe Solomon. He's been with you for a while as a fill-in guy, hasn't he? And he's joined the band
Yeah,
as a
yeah. Post
full-time member now.
Yeah, post COVID. He's a local guy. I've known him since he was like an actual like little child. Like when I met him, he was very, very small boy. But yeah, he's super crazy talented. Great musical palette. And we needed an international touring guitar player, because our guitar player, Spencer, just is not like in a mind where he can really be traveling internationally, at least in the moment.
Hmm.
So this kind of like alleviated those troubles. And it was so fun playing with him. And it's been something we've dabbled with over the years anyway, like discussing offhand, just to make the experience, maybe a bit fuller and wilder live. And it's been really great. He didn't help write this record. He joined like when the record was kind of already finished officially, but he's definitely going to contribute to writing it. And live, it's like it juices me up, because he's like, he flips out the whole time, and he really has like a good sense of musicality. I think he complements like the guitar riffs really well. Like he just adds a nice layer to it. It's tasteful, and I don't know. It's been really positive. He's a weirdo. It's a good
Well,
thing.
you said you've known him years, so he'll have no problems like fitting into what is now a very well established act.
Right. Yeah, it was like a glove. It was fine. Like all those
Yeah.
guys have been forever. So yeah.
That's that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, but I feel quite blessed as an extreme music fan this year in particular. I started my
Yeah.
year by seeing like Wormrot, on the same bill
Oh
as
yeah.
Primitive Man, and Wormrot, like just their Hiss album, just changed
Oh,
the
it
way I
rules.
think about that sort of music. And then this week saw Knoll, who
Nice.
were supporting
Good, good.
Bellwitch. And that's also like, a band like yourselves who are just pushing the envelope, like full on pushing the envelope. And I do think the grindcore power violence, whatever you want to call it, that scene has got so much energy. It's making other genres look lazy because you're pushing yourself so much, man. You know? How does it feel to like as a fan of the music as well? I mean, it seems like we're hitting a renaissance now, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of hoped that post-COVID would be like a general sort of renaissance for live music and art in general. I think as far as my personal experience, which is I think is pretty narrow, I don't think it's like universal by any means, but as far as I'm concerned, my musical career, I've seen like a slow like enrichment of all genres, all styles. I think no matter what you're into, there's something going on. Like if you're
Mm,
into dungeon synth, there's entire labels and scenes that only
yeah.
focus on like RPG influenced dungeon synth. Grindcore is like a pretty interesting thing because there's like a really rich and brutal scene of like real grind bands that don't play with Full of Hell, like we're different ecosystems, and it's
Yes.
like really focused like mince grind and stuff. UK especially in particular, England has like a really good grindcore scene. And I don't know, like everywhere that like Noel is doing, like they're really young. I met the
Mm,
singer of that band. He was like before he started Noel and was just like kind of trying to get his band going, super talented. And like they're doing like it's almost like a portal type, like swirling kind of grindcore thing. It's cool. It
it's
reminds me of a lot of stuff I liked when I was younger too.
yeah.
Mainly though, I think you're right. I think any corner of creative music or art that you could possibly look in. I think if you think there's nothing going on, you're just kind of, it's like a really, really hilariously ignorant thing to say.
Mm,
Because, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's always going to be, but there's
yeah.
like tons and tons and tons of incredible stuff happening. Not just like bands that actually have attention and tour like ours, like just all kinds of bands. And I think a lot of that is just due to accessibility, for all of the ills the internet has like they've warped and melted our parents' brains, but
Mm,
like that it's given accessibility to artists. Like we don't need anybody anymore. You don't really need the record label or anything. Like
mm,
you have the tools to do it yourself. And
yes.
I think in every medium of art that has been like very enriching, like video games included, film and everything
Mm,
little indie stuff is important. And I think taking the power away from the resources, the utilities is like step one. So that's what
yeah.
we're living through now. Everybody's able to make stuff.
Yeah, it's funny actually. There was an online debate I saw last night about, I don't know if you've noticed there's this thing called Udio came out, it's AI technology that can write music. And they're saying, oh, you think
Interesting.
it's funny now, but look what happened to the artists when like people are using AI album covers. Now, is it going to get to a point where AI makes music? And I was like, well, no, I think that's just going to push humans to make better music. Like, because I can't see
Yeah,
musicians rolling over and just letting it happen.
I think about AI a lot. Honestly, it's really interesting. I was playing with it the other night, actually, not the music one, but just like the general one of the older free AI models. But I actually, I would say that I think AI could make indiscernible music, that there will come a point where it will be making music that people couldn't, the average person would not be able to tell the difference. I
Mm.
don't know about guitar music necessarily, but especially electronic music.
Oh,
And when we're shipping
electronica, yeah.
around on grids and stuff, and we're sampling a lot. Um, but I think that's going to be irrelevant. I think intention is going to be way more important. I think that, I mean, it might shift the economy of the music. It probably already is, but I don't think it's going to like axe human beings from it. I think people still want to see humans making music.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I guess I'm agreeing with you and disagreeing. Like, I think it will f things up, but I just don't think people are, like you said, there's no way people aren't going to want to have art made by human beings. I can
Absolutely.
tell
And yeah,
record
kid,
covers are made by AI.
kids still gonna want to wash. I mean, you're still
Right.
gonna have to plug a guitar in and let rip.
Yeah, man. It is what it is. We can't stop the steel boots of progress.
No, absolutely not. Talking of the steel boots of progress, obviously you're hitting the road with Dying Fetus soon in the
Yeah.
States. Is there any plans to hit our shores over here in the UK at all?
Well, I mean, the UK is like top three favorite places for us to tour, like ever since we started the band, because we've always had such a, I don't know what it is. I think we just like came around at a perfect time. Culturally, I think like the UK just is really into extreme music. Like it just felt
Yes.
so thick from the first, like 2011 when we played in London. It was just like, oh my God, there's people here that like us
Oh
at
yeah.
that point, 1/7 inch. So it's super important to us. So I can say like it's pretty mandatory that if we go over to that side of the ocean, we're gonna play UK. Even if we like banned ourselves from ever playing in Europe again,
Hmm.
we will go to England and Scotland and Ireland, both sides, for the rest of our lives if possible. So there are no actual plans like right now, but we're definitely coming next year. I mean, it's mandatory. It's just it's so important to us and the shows are so good that we don't want to like go too often. It's it's
Yeah, man.
it's like a it's a paradox a little bit, I guess. But yeah, I want it to stay really special and good because it's so sick. I love going to
Yeah.
England so much.
That's so cool. And we
Like I
love you
really
too.
do. Like it's so sick. I love like there's so many spots and friends and everything. It's just I'm really into it. We all love it.
We've got, I'm just looking at my schedule for the rest of summer, and there's some amazing festivals coming up. We've got like Arc Tangent and things like that.
Right. That
And you
one's
wouldn't have
cool.
thought like this sort of music that we all like, as subversive and as extreme as it can be in all its myriad forms, would fill an entire huge festival.
It's good times, man. I don't know what it was like, 20 years ago on that level at all. I've watched like Hellfest DVDs, the American Hellfest and all of that stuff. Obviously grew up with it. But it's like hard to have a perspective because the bands that you thought were like massive when you were a kid maybe weren't. Like a lot of
No.
the shit that I liked was pretty small actually. And it really makes the world feel small. But I do think we're like witnessing like a very strange era in aggressive music in general. And like that has to do with, all across hardcore and metal, like seeing a band like even like a Turnstile doing the shit that they're doing.
Mm,
Those dudes are it's amazing.
that
Or
took me
even
by
like a
surprise, actually.
metalcore band like Knocked Loose. Those
Mm,
dudes are really fucking nice, like humble, hardworking
mm,
people that clearly seem to really care about what they're doing, and they're just playing venues that like I just would never have fathomed. Even Dying Fetus, who I've been
mm,
listening to since I was an actual child, I always thought they were like successful. They are, but like they're huge, man. Like
mm.
it's just a cool time, and that music is like that's
Mm.
not marketable, but here
Yeah.
we are. It's a good
Well,
time.
that's it. Extreme conditions demand extreme responses, man.
Right. Right.
Absolutely. Well, this has been such a cool interview. I really campaigned to get this one. So thank you so much for being with us, Dylan.
Oh, it's my
And
pleasure, brother. Thank you.
yeah, just best of luck with the rest of the year and going out on the road with Dying Fetus. That'll be sick.
Oh,
So
we can't wait,
yes,
man. Yeah,
thanks
man.
so much,
Cheers.
man.
Yeah, have a great evening, dude.
You too, mate.